we have a lawsuit in Montgomery. While most of us following politics in the capital city and, of course, following the dramatic events of last week, what with the Alabama Republican Party coalescing, getting together, and passing really a party line vote, this dramatic change in educational opportunity and parental choice within the education system, both in the private schools and in public schools. We expected that there would be a lawsuit forthcoming, and there was a lawsuit forthcoming. As first reported by YellowhammerPolitics.com and Cliff Sims, AEA filed suit this morning not to steal his thunder. Cliff Sims joins us on the Murphy Show hotline. We normally have him every Thursday and a little bit early this week to talk about the story he broke this morning on Yellowhammer Politics. Cliff, good morning.
Matt, appreciate you having me on already this morning. I tell you, this, it's all politics, and I usually, I'm a pretty laid-back guy, and I don't typically get mad about, people playing politics as part of the process. But, over the last several days since this happened, I've seen liberals on Twitter, on Facebook, all over, calling what they did here a welfare program. Now, you're willing, as liberals, to give people free cell phones paid for by tax dollars, but you find it offensive that we would find a way for kids stuck in failing schools to get a real education. And I believe now, Matt, that education is the real civil rights issue of our time. And we've got impoverished children, many of whom are minorities, are being trapped in their situation with no way out because they can't get access to a good education, which is the ultimate equalizer. And it's being denied to them by the very people in elected office who claim to be representing their best interests, when in reality they're representing their own interests and their own power. And this is just completely beyond the pale of anything I've seen in the short few years that I've been around politics, that they would file suit to attempt to block the governor from signing a bill that would give these kids access to an education that they are currently not receiving.
Well, maybe the parents of the kids in those failing systems should sue the AEA and the public school system generally, or countersue or something or another. Yeah, I mean, obviously, and the people that you discuss, those that are attempting to nitpick this to death, those that when you question them, I had a school teacher on earlier that had just decided he didn't like this. It was bad for big. It wasn't well thought out. It was a horrible plan, needed to be scrapped. And I said to him, Cliff, all right, you're a school teacher. And he started off by saying, I've wanted a change in education for a long, long time. I said, okay, you say you want a change in education for a long, long time. Tell me your idea. Asked him 3 times. Not once did I get any idea about how to change the school system from the inside out to help affect change in terms of educating young people, especially young people within failing systems. So it's just convenient that for years these folks have said, oh, yeah, we want to do something. And when someone actually does, all they want to do is bash the idea.
Yeah, no, these, and we've got tons of outstanding teachers across this state, and pretty much every single education reform, whether it's this or anything that Republicans want to pass, the good teachers would never have a single thing to worry about. They don't have anything they would never lose their job. Everybody wants to keep the good teachers around. It's the bad teachers who don't want to do their job, who don't want to educate these kids to do what they're supposed to do. Those are the teachers who would typically find themselves in trouble for a lot of these education reforms that pass. But Matt, they don't want, you're exactly right, they don't want tenure reform. They don't want any accountability measures that track the success of the teachers in the classroom.
They were largely against school flexibility, for goodness sake.
Yeah, they don't even, I've just, I've only been around this a couple of years now, but I'm serious when I say that I've never seen anything so ridiculous as what we're seeing right now. What they're willing to do to try to stop this from becoming law, to file a lawsuit in an attempt to stop the governor from signing a bill into law. Nobody I've talked to has seen anything like this.
And on the other side of it, I was speaking with Chuck Dean yesterday of the Birmingham News, AL.com. He's been around education politics for, almost as long as you've been alive, Cliff. And I'm almost serious about that. I think it's 30 years or so. And he said he had never seen anything in Alabama politics as bold and well coordinated and gutsy as what went down on Thursday amongst the Republicans. So you got the two sides of that. So that leads us to what you broke earlier this morning, that the AEA has filed suit. I guess this is in circuit court in Montgomery?
That's correct.
Do we know who the the judge will be that will hear the case? I'm assuming it will be heard today.
Yeah, I don't know who the judge is going to be, but I know that they were moving pretty quickly to have, and I'm not obviously a lawyer and completely understand the legal process is going to take place, but apparently they're going to go before a judge this morning to find out if he is going to grant this temporary restraining order that they're seeking.
Yeah, I spoke with Jay St. Clair. He's kind of our legal go-to guy. You know Jay, and Jay, he indicated that it would be, I think the words he used, quite shocking to him if the judge issued the restraining order, because the restraining order component of this, from a legal standpoint, the judge has to consider whether or not things will change substantially and irreversibly should he not issue the order. And as Jay pointed out, it makes sense. Well, what's going to change between now and 3 weeks from now? I mean, it's not as if this is going to go into effect right now. It'll go into effect probably the next school year. So nothing's going to change by the governor signing that order. And one could argue that it's quite a violation of the balance of power, a check and balance deal, if the judicial branch of government starts telling the executive branch of government they can't sign a law duly passed by the legislative branch of government.
Yeah, no, I think that, and obviously I'm not an expert on that, but I think he's exactly right. The thing that's interesting to me about this politically is for the first time in I think a really long time in Alabama politics, you're seeing the lines between the sides become clearly defined. For a long time that we had both Democrats and Republicans down in Montgomery that, were trucking along business as usual. And, 2010 Republican takeover turned that on its head a little bit. But we're finally starting to see, even Democrats in the past in Alabama would say, well, we're conservative Democrats, we're all Alabama values, whatever that means, et cetera, et cetera. But you're finally starting to see when we really get down to the brass tacks here, you see the conservatives on one side that are finally stood up and stuck their neck out and said, we're going to do something truly remarkable and try to push through some conservative reform. And now you see the real liberals rear their heads, and you see these guys, the AEA, who's become frankly a far left fringe organization, and their lawyers that are ACLU Democrat Party lawyers that we've become familiar with. And I think it's just, I'm glad now that we can look around and know that here's who's on our side, here's who's on their side.
One ask, and maybe it's a bit premature, but I love being the first one to throw these types of questions out there on the table, Cliff. If this goes,
that's what I love about you, man.
If this goes through and this becomes law, you have to wonder if Henry Mabry can survive this as head of the AEA. No. I mean, it's that big of a deal.
Sure. No, this is, and I've heard people talking about that, and I haven't heard any, I haven't seen any evidence that he may be on the way out. But, this
prevent. That's right.
This would have been lay down on the train tracks, get run over if we have to. It doesn't matter, whatever we have to do, DEFCON 5, whatever you want to call it, to stop this. And that's why they would go to such lengths that they're going to today. I think there is a certain amount of self-preservation probably involved in this for Mabry.
Well, and that's why the Republicans chose the political tactics that they did. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's the nature of the game. Politics is the ultimate blood sport. They followed the rules, and this is what part of the AEA lawsuit. They're claiming that the rules were not followed, right? That they somehow met in secret or something or another.
Right. No,
yeah.
And overall, big picture wise, I think the first thing we got to focus on here is the policy. That this is good policy for children, and for the first time in a long time in Alabama, somebody passed an education reform bill that was focused on the children and put the political ramifications second. We're going to do this, whatever we have to do this for the children. But second, if we got to talk about the process, we really need to remember that the Republicans did absolutely nothing that was against the rules, legislative rules. They did nothing illegal. They did nothing unethical. Was it hardball politics? Was it tactical? You bet. You better believe it. But they did nothing that was even remotely close to, I've had guys since this past talk about, I think Beeson was actually on your show when he said, when they first took over in 2010, they tried to have a conference committee, and nobody there knew how to do it because the Democrats wouldn't even hold a conference committee. bill would just reappear back on the floor and it'd be over with.
Well, let me, and there are, but before we let you go, Cliff, there are some legitimate questions, and I understand a lot of these details have to be ironed out. I'm generally in support of the bill, you know that. But legitimate questions about the cost. I asked Adele this morning, President Pro Tem of the Senate, Del Marsh, what is this going to cost Alabama? Because it's not net revenue neutral. He accepted the fact that it wasn't going to be net revenue neutral, but then went on to say, I don't know. We don't know yet what it's going to cost Alabama. So, I mean, there are some legitimate questions. I think you iron out those things moving forward. There are some that want to solve these little issues that are going to come up. There are others that just want to pick the nits.
Sure. Yeah, you're going to see a ton of folks that just want to throw stones at it, and I agree with you. There are some things that are going to need to be tweaked moving forward, and my hope would be that our Republican legislators would be humble enough to approach those tweaks with an open mind and decide, this is the best way to do this, that, or the other. But this is you could not pull something off this significant in Alabama without some of these bumps along the road, and that's just going to be part of it.
Best to guess, does the governor sign this piece of legislation this afternoon, 4 o'clock?
I think yes. I will be very surprised if they block it.
Excellent work today on YellowhammerPolitics.com. Go there to get the details of the story broken by Cliff. Thanks, Cliff.
Thanks, man.
All right, take care. That's Cliff Sims, everyone, of YellowhammerPolitics.com.